Hey everyone, welcome back to Characteristics of Living Things. Last video, we went over the first three characteristics of living things: organization, grow and develop, and reproduce. This video, we're going to be going over a fourth characteristic of living things, and that is responds to stimuli. Now just remember that the characteristics do not have to be in a specific order, and some books or social media might say that there's 7 characteristics or 6 characteristics, but just remember that it's all still pretty much covering the same thing. They just might name it differently, but it's really the same thing. All right, let's get started.
That is snow! No, it's not! Today
All right, so what you just saw were examples of our next characteristic of organisms. What you saw was an example of stimulus and response, which is our next characteristic, responding to stimuli. Now, you respond to stimuli every day. So some stimuli we refer to as internal stimuli, which means it takes place inside the body, and you do this every day. So an example of internal stimuli, response to internal stimuli, is if you feel hungry or thirsty, you look for food or water. And just like this guy, you go and get yourself a bowl of something delicious because you're hungry and eat it up. All right, the second kind is when we respond to external stimuli, or stimuli that takes place outside of the body. Now, an example of that is probably something that you don't normally think of, because you probably don't think of the fact that plants actually respond to stimuli. But one example of external stimuli is a plant growing toward light. All right, so there's your picture, and you can see that the plant is actually facing the sun, and then it turns and faces the sun here. Now, I am going to show you an example shortly. A better example, I should say. All right, so let's take a look at a good example. A good example of responding to stimuli is like this summer when we had a really, really hot day, okay? Really, really hot out. And what happens then is this poor guy goes outside and he sweats. Okay, so it's super hot out and it causes the man to sweat. So temperature is the stimulus, and what it does to the body, which is make this guy sweat, is the response in this example. So let's take a look at exactly what we mean by stimulus and response. So a stimulus is just a change to your surroundings, and that can be inside or outside of the body. And our response is our change in behavior. So the change in behavior is the response. So in our example, temperature was a change in our surroundings, and then the sweaty guy is the response or change in behavior. So him sweating is the change in behavior. Okay? But probably the coolest example of stimulus and response happens in plants. So I'm going to show you this video, and then afterwards I will explain it. All right, what you saw in the video is that plants are actually responding to the sun's light. The plants are bending so that they can absorb or take in the sun's rays. Their stimulus is the sun, and their response is them bending toward the light. Another example in dealing with light is when we take a human eye, okay, and we put light in the eye. What happens is, if you look here, the pupil, which is that little black thing in the middle of the eye, look how small that gets when we shine a light into the eye. And if you look over here, you can see how big the pupil is. So that's just another example of response to stimuli. In this case, the stimulus is the light, and the response is that the pupil constricts or gets smaller. All right, so I hope you all enjoyed the video on responding to stimuli. And remember, we've gone over 4 characteristics of life now so far. So remember, all living things are organized, all living things grow and develop, all living things reproduce, and all living things respond to stimuli. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you for the next part of Characteristic of Living Things, where we learn about homeostasis and energy. Have a great day, guys.